Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss and revise adjudication. Now, all of us understand that entire GST is based on self-assessment. When we say it is based on self-assessment, obviously there is a requirement that department has a control over self-assessment to check whether there is any non-payment of taxes. For that, government has given them power under section 73 and section 74. Now what do these two sections represent? Section 73 provides for issuing a notice, that is show cause notice, and a demand order under section 73, which is for other than FMS. FMS, fraud, willful misstatement, suppression of facts. If it's a case of other than fraud, willful misstatement or suppression of facts, a notice and demand order will be issued under section 73. For section 74, again deals with show cause notice and demand order in case of a fraud, willful misstatement or suppression of facts. Now, when we talk about these two sections, you should be very careful about one very important point. There are only 5 cases for which notice can be issued. 1. Non-payment of tax. 2nd. Short payment of tax. 3rd. Wrong availment of ITC. 4th. Wrong utilization of ITC. And the last one is erroneous refund. What's the meaning of erroneous refund? Where a person has taken refund where he was not eligible for such refund. Now, there's a time limit. Government cannot come back to me after 10 years saying that you did not pay tax at that point of time. So there's a time limit which is mentioned in the law. What is the time limit for issuing notice? See, whenever we talk about time limit, there is a time limit for issuing show cause notice. There's a time limit for issuance of demand order. In case of other than fraud, this limit is 2 years and 9 months. And for demand order, the time limit is 3 years. By this time, demand order or show cause notice has to be issued. This is the last date for issuing notice, last date for issuing a demand order. For fraud cases, this is 4 years and 6 months. And demand order, the total time is 5 years. You know what's the most important thing in this? From where does all these time limits start? That's the most important thing. All these time limits start from the due date for filing annual return for a financial year. That means, say suppose there is a transaction of fraud in August 2020. If there is a fraud in August 2020, पहले financial year find करो. What is the financial year? 2020-21. Now when I say 2020-21 is the financial year, what is the due date for filing annual return? The due date for filing annual return would be 31st December 2021. From that 31st December 2021, you will start counting this. Be very careful. These timelines don't start when the fraud was done, when the short payment was done. It does not start from the end of financial year. It starts from due date for filing annual return for such financial year. From there you will start counting. Clear? Okay. In case of erroneous refund, these time limits are calculated from the day when we receive such erroneous refund. Such refund, excess refund which we have received, from that day this time limit begins. Clear with this? Yes. Now what is the adjudication process? See, adjudication process starts with issue of notice, notice has to be served. Then the next step is we reply to that notice. Thereafter there would be a personal hearing, and finally an order is passed. See, time limit is given for these two things, order and issuance. That means all the other processes should be completed within that time. So there is a time limit or last date to issue notice, last date to issue order. Remember, these are last date to issue orders or notices. That means, say suppose a fraud is done in August. Can a notice be issued in August? Yes, obviously. Can order be passed in October? The answer is yes. After giving an opportunity, order can be passed. So please understand, these are last date for passing the order or issuance of notice. Now, here government has fixed limits for superintendent, ACDC, that is Assistant Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, and Additional Commissioner, Joint Commissioner. These are the three adjudicators. Adjudicators matlab any decision will be passed by these three: Superintendent, ACDC, Additional Commissioner, Joint Commissioner. How much power is available? If it's a matter of CGST, then up to 10 lakh rupees. If it's a matter of IGST or a combination of CGST plus IGST or C plus S, in that case, this will be 20 lakh. So to this extent, superintendent can go with an order. Tax amount. We are only talking about tax amount. ACDC, it's from 10 lakh, above 10 lakh to 1 crore. For IGST, double, 20 lakh to 2 crore. And more than 1 crore or more than 2 crore in IGST, that is done by Additional Commissioner, Joint Commissioner. Remember, Commissioner does not adjudicate. Adjudication is done by these three officers. Now, one more very interesting question which arises is, how do you serve a notice? How do you serve a notice? See, notice can be served by hand delivery, which is tendering. Notice can also be served through email. Notice can also be served through registered post or authorized courier agencies with acknowledgement due. It can also be served on the common portal, that is gst.gov.in. If these are not possible, publication of newspaper is also permitted. Now, if these are not practical, then fix it on the premise of the registered person where his last address was there. If there is no premise at all, in such cases, government says, put it in the notice board of the proper officer, that is considered as service. But this cannot be used as the first mode, never. Only when other things are not permissible, you can go by this particular mode. And what is that mode? That mode is fixing on the notice board of proper officer. This is the last resort. Okay. Now, say suppose there was a notice issued for 1819. 1819 के लिए एक notice issue हुआ. ठीक है? Show cause notice issue हुआ. उसके बाद 1920 same matter continues. Officer has two options. One, he can issue a fresh show cause notice, or he can also issue a statement providing information that it's a same matter. So same matter के लिए officer can issue a statement, and that statement would be regarded as a valid notice. So this is an option which is available to officers. Clear with this? Yes. Now, there are a lot of instances where Section 74 notice is issued, meaning fraud notice is issued, but thereafter it is held by the court that it was not a notice under fraud. There was no fraud which was done. In such cases, department cannot issue a new notice under 73 now because time limit would be already over. Government has provided a solution to this. What does the law say? The law says if notice under 74 is held to be invalid, that means there is no fraud by a court. If it is held by a court that it is invalid, in such cases, it would be deemed that the notice was issued under other than fraud, that is Section 73. So, if a notice of 74 is held to be invalid because of no fraud, in such cases, it would be deemed that the notice was issued under 73. So that at least government gets revenue for last 3 years. Otherwise, for fraud cases, they can recover from last 5 years. Clear with this? Yes. Yes. Because most of these are continuing matters. When I say continuing matters, that same issue would continue for 1819, 1920, 2021. Business continues and issues remain same mostly. Okay. Then, say suppose notice is stayed by a court. If notice is stayed by a court, then in that case, the period of stay would be excluded for computing all these limits. Done? Okay. Government also gives some discount schemes. Yes, there are some discount schemes available depending on whether it's a case of other than fraud or it's a case of FMS. There are some discount schemes. But discount is not in tax. Discount is not in interest. Discount is only in penalty. Okay. Let me first tell you what is the maximum penalty. See, the maximum penalty which can be charged in case of other than FMS is 10% of tax or 10,000, whichever is higher. This is the maximum penalty which can be charged for other than FMS. Now for FMS, this is 100% of the tax. This is the maximum penalty which can be charged. Correct? Clear with this? Okay. Now government is giving some discount in penalty. Don't forget that discount is only given by government on penalty, so that you can close the proceedings before it reaches court and expenditure has to be incurred. Now, say suppose a person pays entire amount of tax, interest and applicable penalty before the show cause notice. Before the issuance of show cause notice, the person has paid tax, interest and applicable penalty if any. In such cases, if it's other than FMS, nil penalty. Oh, wonderful. Nil penalty. And if it is a case of FMS, then 15% of the tax. 15% of the tax. That means discount is 85%. What is the maximum penalty? 100. And government is saying pay only 15%. It's a good scheme. Then if you pay within 30 days from service of notice, 30 days from the service of notice, if you pay, for other than FMS, it's nil. For FMS, it is 25% of the tax amount. And say suppose government gives you one more alternative, and that one more alternative is within 30 days from communication of demand order. 30 days from communication of demand order. In such cases, for other than FMS, there is no relief. But for FMS, 50% of the tax. Government is giving a relief of 50% on the penalty. I again repeat, don't forget the benefit is not on tax and interest. Plus, you should pay tax, interest and applicable penalty, that is reduced penalty, has to be paid. Only then this is available. Now, one important thing. This other than FMS, you can see nil and nil. This nil and nil benefit is not available in case a person has not paid self-assessed tax. Self-assessed tax has not been paid. That means he is saying that this much is what I have to pay. If he has not paid that self-assessed tax for 30 days from the due date, say suppose August month, what's the due date? 20th September. For 30 days he has not paid this, then he has to pay penalty. Relief of nil and nil will not be available. He has to pay it. But tell me one thing, people. Will this be paid voluntarily? No. CBIC has clarified that this penalty is applicable only when show cause notice under section 73 is issued for non-payment of tax for more than 30 days. If you have not paid tax for more than 30 days, department will issue a notice, then you cannot claim a relief of nil and nil. Remember, you cannot claim a relief of nil and nil in such cases. Clear with this? Yes, the self-assessed tax not paid for more than 30 days. In such cases, 73 relief is not available. Okay. Now talking about section 75. See, what does section 75 deal with? It deals with common points which are applicable for both section 73 as well as section 74. Common points. What is the first common point? First common point relates to prosecution. Hey, just because you have paid all these amounts does not mean criminal proceedings cannot be started against you. आपने टैक्स इंटरेस्ट पेनल्टी भर दिया, अब you cannot go ahead and say that I have already paid tax interest and penalty, criminal proceedings, that is imprisonment or jail proceedings, cannot be started against you. That is not permissible. Prosecution is separate, civil proceeding is separate. Tax interest penalty is civil proceeding. Criminal proceeding can still be initiated or started. Okay. Second is with regard to connected persons. Now, connected persons, say suppose I was a person against whom notice was issued. There was truck driver and truck owner who were carrying those goods. So, they also become connected parties to this notice. If I am given a relief, मेरे खिलाफ केस खत्म हो गया है. In such cases, the case is over for all such connected persons as well. So, this relief is available to all the connected persons. Clear with this? Yes. Thereafter, the third point is how many adjournments are allowed. Adjournments, tariq pe tariq. Now, the adjournment has a limit. There are 3 adjournments which are permitted. 3 times you can call for adjournment or pushing the hearing, personal hearing to the next date. That is allowed 3 times to each party. Now, fourth, when we talk about interest, interest is mandatory even if it is not mentioned in the notice. But the same does not apply for tax and penalty. Tax and penalty will apply only if it is in the show cause notice. If, say, suppose a matter is not mentioned in the show cause notice, then can the proceedings be done for that matter? The answer is no, never. And remember one thing, demand order can never go beyond the show cause notice. Say, suppose notice is issued for 10 lakh. Demand order cannot be 12 lakh. That is not permissible, people. It can maximum be to the extent of show cause notice. It can be favorable to me, it can be favorable to department, or it could be a mix of both. But never can demand order cross the notice amount. But interest is always mandatory. Plus, some cases where the case is sent back to the officer by a higher authority. Say suppose High Court sends it to the to the officer saying that there was a issue, you have not seen into the issue correctly. In such cases, that officer gets 2 years time to dispose that particular case and pass a order. Yes? Okay. One very important section is section 76. Now, what is this section 76? Listen to me very carefully. Section 76 deals with amount collected representing as tax. You are not collecting tax. You are collecting an amount which represents as tax. Say suppose, मैं एक exempt service दे रहा हूँ. I am providing an exempt service. Now I collect tax. If there is no tax applicable on that, so I have collected an amount representing it as tax. First of all, I need to pay this amount forthwith. What's the meaning of forthwith? Immediately I have to pay the amount. And if I don't pay it immediately, interest will be applicable. And can the department issue a show cause notice? The answer is yes. And the biggest thing is there is no time limit. No time limit mentioned in the law. This is an open-ended provision. No time limit, meaning show cause notice can be issued anytime. But once show cause notice is issued, demand order to be passed within 1 year from the issuance of show cause notice. So, show cause notice does not have a time limit, but demand order has a time limit. Clear? Okay. Then we have section 77. Section 77 basically deals with a case where you have paid C plus S instead of I, and you can claim a refund of C plus S after paying IGST. Yes, and similar provision is section 19 of IGST. Then we have section 78 and 79 which deal with recovery. 78 talks about initiation of recovery. 79 talks about modes of recovery. See, officer has passed a demand order. You have two options. One, to pay the liability or go for further appeal. If you go for further appeal, no problem. But if you don't go for further appeal, officers will initiate recovery proceedings. And recovery proceedings can be initiated after expiry of 3 months from the demand order. Be very careful. You will find this 3 months even in appeal provision, that appeal has to be filed within 3 months plus condonation can be allowed. But that 3 months and this 3 months is linked. Government has one power where in case there is a person who might run away, in such cases, they can go and recover within the period of 3 months as well by passing a written order. Now, for the purpose of recovery, whenever we talk about recovery can be done from the person or any of the distinct persons. Like Karnataka branch has done a fraud. In that case, recovery can happen from Maharashtra branch as well. The law is very clear on that side. Recovery, there are various modes. You can recover it through adjustment of any amount which is there with you as an officer, or garnish order, that is issue a notice to the bank freezing of accounts, or it could be a case where you recover it as arrears of land revenue, which is called as certificate proceedings. You give a certificate to the district collector and district collector will recover it. Otherwise, the proper officer can go and sell the properties, detain and distrain. That is also possible. In case of liquidation, yes, in such cases, official liquidator will be informed that this is the amount due to government and this is what we have to receive. So, if there is a surety, then recovery can happen even from the surety, the person who has assured that in case the other person does not pay, I will pay. So, all such methods can be used by officer. And the worst part is, there is no order given. They can use any method at their discretion. It is giving them lot of power. And say suppose you are not able to recover the entire amount, then it will be shared between central government and state government. Say suppose due was 10 lakh and 10 lakh. If you recover only 5, then both will share 2.5. The law has clearly provided for it. Then we have section 80. Payment of tax in installment. Installment scheme is also available. You get EMI now. Today the time is of EMI. Government also give EMI option. Commissioner can give this to a maximum of 24 installments. But if you don't pay one installment, then in that case, you have to immediately pay the entire amount. This is to stop recovery proceedings. I take some time saying that give me 24 months, I will pay entire dues along with 18% per annum interest. Very high interest. Along with 18% per annum interest. But this is not available in some cases. One, say suppose there is already a recovery proceeding going against that person, he cannot claim for installment. Second, if previous financial year it was not allowed, in that case it will not be allowed this time. And if the amount is less than 25,000, this scheme will not be available. Okay. Then we have section 81. Now section 81, some transactions will be regarded as void. Like, I have evaded tax. मेरे से recovery करना है. I have a property. मैंने क्या किया? I transferred that property to someone else free of cost. So that recovery cannot happen. In such cases, that transfer will be regarded as void. Something which you have read in Indian Contract Act. But remember, if it is in good faith and for full consideration, then it will be considered as a valid transaction. Then we have section 82. Section 82 deals with liability first charge. Government has first charge over all the assets subject to insolvency and bankruptcy code. So first, whatever is mentioned in insolvency and bankruptcy code, that amount will be paid. Thereafter, government dues will get a priority.
Now the last discussion in this is section 83. Now section 83 basically provides for provisional attachment. Don't mix it up with provisional assessment. Read the question carefully in the examination. Provisional attachment. Now, see, all the proceedings will take time, from issue of show cause notice, then reply, then personal hearing, then order. In fact, if provisional assessment has started, or assessment scrutiny under section 61 has started, or best judgment assessment has started, so all this will take lot of time. Till that, can government take away property of the person who government thinks has evaded tax? No, because order has to be passed, then he should be given an opportunity to file an appeal. But during this period, he might also run away with the assets. He might also dispose of those assets, and that's why there is something called as provisional attachment. Commissioner can pass an order to provisionally attach the property of the person whom he thinks that he is going to sell the property or he is going to dispose of the property. In what cases can it be done? 59 to 64 cases. Section 59 to 64, it deals with assessment. Audit is not included in this. 67 to 72, which deals with inspection, search, seizure. And whatever provisions you have learnt today in this 73 to 84, that is demand and recovery. Demand and recovery. If any of these are going on, then in that case, can commissioner provisionally attach the property? Yes, movable, immovable, both can be attached. The maximum time period for which the attachment will work is 1 year from the date of attachment. After that, sir, see, say suppose you are able to convince that everything is fine, then he will anyways remove it, because you can file an objection against this. If he is satisfied with the objections, then he will remove the provisional attachment. Or within 1 year, the moment 1 year expires, automatic removal will happen, because the law provides for it. If it is perishable or hazardous goods, if you pay the amount which is due or amount of perishable or hazardous goods value, whichever is lower, if you pay that, then perishable or hazardous goods will be released. Otherwise, provisional attachment will continue for 1 year. 1 year, is it a good time limit for officer to check everything and make sure that this person is behind bar? Yes, obviously 1 year is a very good time limit, which is provided in this for provisionally attaching. Sir, once attached, can they attach it again? The law does not bar it. If once it is attached for 1 year, again they can issue a provisional attachment order for another 1 year, though you'll not get a question because the law is silent on this aspect. So be very careful about provisional attachment. Then there are some circulars. A very important circular is relating to section 73-74. Say suppose 74 is held to be invalid, then it is deemed that notice was issued under section 73. So if the department is not able to prove that there is a fraud, and I am able to prove that there was no fraud, then in that case 74 will be considered as invalid. It is deemed that notice is issued under 73. Now if it is deemed that notice is issued under 73, this will come from a appellate authority, appellate tribunal, high court or supreme court order. Now once that order is communicated to the officer, see, notice is deemed to be issued under 73, but one order has to be passed under 73. Now what is the time limit to pass that order under 73? The law has said the time limit will be 2 years from the date when such communication is received. The moment communication is received by the officer saying that this is the This is not a case of 74, it will be a case of 73. The moment you get that order, you will have to, as an officer, issue a fresh order under 73 within 2 years. That is the timeline which is applicable in such cases. So this is something which is really important. You can get a question on this. Now let's quickly have a look at all the provisions which we have seen. First we went through 73, 74, 73 time limit, 74 time limit, and if it is a case of erroneous refund, then in that case the time limit will start from date of erroneous refund. Otherwise, all the time limits start from due date for filing annual return, because that's when the time limits begin. For erroneous refund, date of erroneous refund. Then you remember that there are limits for superintendent up to 20 lakh, for ACDC more than 10 lakh up to 1 crore, and here it is more than 10 lakh up to 1 crore, and here it is more than 20 lakh up to 2 crore, and here more than 1 crore, here more than 2 crore. Commissioner cannot issue a notice. Then the process you very well know. You remember the discount schemes and self-assessed tax. If it is not paid within 30 days from due date and a show cause notice is issued, then the relief of first two, that is this nil and this nil, will not be available. You will have to pay 10% of tax or 10,000, whichever is lower. Prosecution, connected persons, adjudication 3 times interest. It's mandatory. Tax and penalty only if mentioned in the show cause notice. Plus, don't forget one thing, if there is a self-assessed tax which I have not paid, that is also mandatory. Like if there is a mismatch between 1 and 3B, it's a self-assessed tax, direct recovery can happen. We had also learned this while discussing returns chapter, rule 88C. Then section 76, the moment you collect an amount representing as tax, you have to forthwith pay it. Show cause notice, no time limit, demand order 1 year. 77, wrong place of supply. You remember this. 78, 79, recovery, first 3 months no recovery. And can recovery happen from distinct person also? The answer is yes. 80, installment, maximum 24 installments, and it is with interest of 18% per annum. 81, and for any transfer will be void. 82, first charge subject to insolvency and bankruptcy code. And finally we dealt with provisional attachment, which will be for 1 year. Correct? Okay, see you all in the next video.